So the High Court has ruled against the people and the local authority of Epping. It is said that the hotel can continue to house asylum seekers there because that's more important than what the people think in that area. So welcome back to Off the Record, my 117,884 truth seekers among you who join me here on Off the Record for what I really think. And I'm really disappointed in this, not because I'm completely anti-immigration and, I don't have any sympathy whatsoever for people that are genuinely fleeing a war-torn country, but this, I think, is ridiculous because I haven't read the judgment in full. I've skimmed it. I've taken a look at what the main thrust of the argument is, and essentially there are a few admissions by the judge in favour of the council, such as it does amount to an evidential basis for the council to believe that it's a breach of planning law, which ordinarily would be enough for the court to rule an injunction because there is an ongoing and persistent breach of planning law, in that they are persistently, flagrantly using a premises against planning regulations. So, for example, if we were to say that you were to prop up a building on your land somewhere and say, well, I'm doing this to assist in housing asylum seekers because the government's got a duty to house them. And so you built a property there. That would be a breach of planning laws because obviously you need planning permission to put a building on there. In theory, albeit a completely different factual scenario, so this is not legal advice, so don't get me wrong, but in theory, the same arguments could apply there. Because if your local authority went to court and said, well, hang on a minute, there's a building here, it's not supposed to be there, we want an injunction to make him take it down. It's sort of urgent because he's put this building there, he's housing hundreds of people in there that are not supposed to be there, it's not supposed to be used to house people, we want him to take it down, pronto. In theory, the court could rule the same thing and say, well, no, because the Home Secretary's got a duty to house people there, so that's more important. Is effectively what the court has said in relation to the Epping Hotel. It's a hotel. It's supposed to be a business. It's supposed to be run as a hotel. It is supposed to comply with all the laws and the regulations of housing people in a hotel. So people come there, they've got to be identified, it's got to be run as a proper business and so on. But instead, they've signed this contract. They've got hundreds of asylum seekers there, many of whom stand accused of following girls home or being prosecuted for sexual offences. Obviously, the one who has now been deported because he went to prison, who was at the centre before he was released by mistake and then captured again and then apparently shipped off after being paid to leave the country. After all of that, he was at the centre of the whole Epping Hotel saga. He was the one who had been found guilty of sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl and I think 26-year-old woman, and throughout the course of the proceedings was found to be deceptive, dishonest, not really taking any responsibility for what he'd done. He thought that the UK was too strict, and he was being made a scapegoat of all this sort of stuff. But nonetheless, he was found guilty, sentenced to 12 months in prison, and then released by mistake when he was supposed to be deported, recaptured some 36 or whatever hours, 48 hours later, whatever it was, and finally deported. But not before he threatened to kick up a fuss and say that he's going to kick up this fuss, prevent his removal, disrupt his removal. So they gave him some money. I was like £500 or something. They gave him some money to leave. That apparently is all more important than what the people want in the local area. And apparently in the local area, people are worried because they say that their children are being followed home from school and all these sort of things because it's within walking distance of a school. This is quite literally putting the duties to house asylum seekers before those of the British people. Now, I get accused of a lot on my channels here. I get accused of being left-wing. I get accused of being right-wing. I get accused, someone called me Jewish. Actually, more than one person called me Jewish the other day. I'm not. And some people call me a Muslim apologist because actually I don't think anybody should be standing against all Muslims. I think that's wrong as well. I think that's ridiculous. But that's not to say that you're prohibited from making genuine criticisms of Islam or whatever, because that should be protected speech. Just like anyone should criticize me, that's protected speech as well. until the point it becomes harassment and these kind of things and goes beyond a threshold that it should be criminalized and whatever. But here, quite literally, I've scanned through the judgment and I've found a few little bits within the judgment that I think are quite controversial. Jumping to one or two of them, we've got here paragraphs 210 onwards. The council has a rational basis to conclude that the use of the hotel for accommodating asylum seekers was a material change of use, therefore a breach of planning control under section 171A of the 1990 Act. And the key there is there's a breach. The existence of this breach is met. So ordinarily under planning enforcement, this would provide for an injunction under section 187B of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. But instead of that, the judge went on to refuse injunctive relief. Now, it's an equitable remedy, so the judge has to do a balancing exercise, the balance of convenience, we call this. Is it more weighted in the public interest, or is it more weighted towards the local authority? Shall we continue the status quo? Now, there's an argument to say, well, it's being used like that. Let's just let that continue. That is the status quo. The counter argument is the status quo is, well, the area being without an asylum seeker hotel is the status quo. Let's go back to that. But because that's not how it currently is, obviously this is a competing argument. But also the reasoning for the refusal balancing on the public interest. The Home Office, this is paragraphs 265, the Home Office has an ongoing and acute need for contingency asylum accommodation. The grant of an injunction would exacerbate an already serious shortage of such facilities, which with great respect, I don't accept that. To say that, if we shut down this hotel by way of injunction because it's a breach of planning rules, that is going to make the problem worse for the Home Secretary, should not really be an argument here. Just because it's going to cause difficulties elsewhere shouldn't make the people of this local area suffer. That's my view, but I'm not a High Court judge. Proportionality against, balance of harms and things like this. The judge found that it would render a number of individuals homeless and create administrative chaos for the Home Office, whereas the harm to the local area, though real, could be managed by the police, presumably. Now, we have something in the order of 4,000 veterans on the streets living homeless. And I am genuinely, I hope with sort of, let's say the power, I'm not getting egotistical here, but the power of reach with my channels here, I would like to set up some kind of fundraiser or something. I don't want to receive the money. I want to assist in supporting some kind of fundraiser so that we can support veterans who are homeless to prevent them being homeless this Christmas, and do my part here for good, and using these channels and my audience here for good. But there are something in the region of 4,000 veterans on the streets, and yet we're housing 50,000 asylum seekers in the last year or so. This, to me, just seems wrong. At the very, very least, we should be saying, right, well, if we can afford to house, well, not afford to, if we're being forced to by laws and everything else to house 50,000 asylum seekers, why should we not be housing 4,000 of our own veterans as well? They literally fought for this country. We have posts by the Home Office, by Labour Party, by Keir Starmer saying, we support veterans. Remembrance Day we've just had. And so why not actually support them then? And bearing that in mind, there's a great video by a good friend of mine talking about remembrance and his great grandfather. So please do go and watch that video. I'll link it below. Fascinating, heart-wrenching, heartfelt video. Please go and watch that. Show me your support, subscribe, and I would love for you to join him and listen to him as well. And so I just had to get my views out on this. I haven't fully digested the judgment, but that is what I make of it so far. It is, however you put it, it is putting the need to house asylum seekers and the Home Secretary's duty to house asylum seekers, and effectively the country's duty to house asylum seekers, before that of the British people. That is what I can make of it so far. And then I've talked about the BBC and the arguments with Donald Trump. Now, it's quite clear to me from the admissions by the chair that he admits that it looks like it's an incitement to violence. Now, that to me looks like an admission that Donald Trump is right and that his lawsuit's going to be successful. Check out my main channel, as I call it, video, Black Belt Barrister video. I'll link that below. Go and check that out. And if I'm moving around somewhat, it's because I am in significant amounts of pain in the last couple of days. The change in the weather always gets me. My lower back injury from many years ago, I ruptured my disc L5 to S1 right at the base of the spine, disc material. I remember it like it was yesterday. The wording of the prognosis here, it was disc material seemed to exit the L5S1 disc into the spinal canal, seemed to abut the paracentral left sciatic nerve, which is why I was in so much pain. It's somewhat healed, I think, since then, but ultimately now results in my back locking up. Subluxation is where the joints, they lock together and the whole thing moves as a unit. So the base of my spine is moving as one unit, and all of the muscles around it just get tight. They pinch nerves, and it's quite literally the worst pain you've ever experienced. So hence the movement. I digress, but I just had to get my views out to you here. And also I would like to do a lot more general discussion on general things. And I'm wondering whether to do that here on Black Belt Barrister Off the Record, or on my Black Belt Secrets channel, or on my Daniel Shensmith channel, which is focused on money. Black Belt Secrets is really more things of gossip and that nature. My Daniel Shensmith money, I want to focus with money, wealth, business creation. If you're not familiar, I'll link them all below. And perhaps growing a YouTube channel on my Daniel Shensmith channel. But I would like to talk about much more general things on one of the channels. Let me know which one you think it should be. I've done some polls and there's mixed views. The views tend to be between Off the Record, here, or Secrets, Black Belt Secrets. I would also love to come back to do lives. I used to do live streams every morning at sort of 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning for a good couple of hours before we went out for park walks and things like that. Again, let me know if you would like those live streams to return. I haven't done them for quite a long time, since I think the channel probably had no more than 100,000 subscribers or something like that. I forget exactly how many subscribers it had at the time, but now having grown so much since then, and all my channel's grown, thanks to all of you, I am truly grateful. I am truly blessed by all of you supportive of these channels here, sharing my thoughts with you. This is your platform here. My channels here are your channels for you for me to share this time with you. Let me know what you want me to talk about here, and I'll be grateful to do that. So let me know your thoughts and comments about this High Court decision. I think it's wrong, frankly, to be perfectly blunt about it, with great respect to the judge. But I've come across quite a few what I call inconsistent decisions just recently. I can tell you about those. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.